Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today in the program, I speak with Kristen and Dan from the Charlotte Curling Club. That is right, curling, the winter sport that you see in the Olympics every 4 years. And it's got a lot of excitement, a lot of big fan base in Canada. Well, guess what? There's a club here in Charlotte. A club that you can join, be a part of, try out. And it's in a wonderful facility, which you can see in the background of the video portion of this podcast. It's amazing. An amazing facility. I was completely unaware of its existence. And Kristen and Dan was more than courteous and kind enough to sit down and talk to me about it and how it came to be. So it's a really good story about that, and it's kind of a sweet one. It's also a short one, but like I said, it is a sweet one, but it is also a very, very, very sweet one in the sense that Kristen and Dan got together because of curling and their love of curling and how they came together. And we get to put that on this podcast. And I'm pretty happy about that because they're sweet people, and they were very nice to sit down and talk to me about the Charlotte Curling Club. So if you guys are interested in curling, or if you're just interested in the community of people that like curling, then come on down to the Charlotte Curling Club after this podcast, of course. But also this podcast, I would let you know, is sponsored by Tree Monstrous Comedy Wednesdays for the last time. Nick Alexander has been presenting. I was about ready to say he's going to or will be or doing so, but no longer. This is the last time that Tree Monsters Comedy Wednesdays will be sponsoring the podcast because the last show is coming up this Wednesday. So make sure you come out to Tremont Music Hall for the last time to see some live stand-up comedy here in the Queen City. And the way you can do that and find out more information about the show, you can log on to TremontMusicHall.com. Anyways, kind of light week for me as far as appearances go. I'm only doing PWX this Saturday, December. It's no longer November. This holiday season's already got me in a fluster, and I don't want to tell you November unless you get a time machine. You ain't going to make it. But anyways, this Saturday, December 19th, I will be performing for PWX Wrestling in Hickory, North Carolina. For more information, log on to pwxpro.com. I may squeeze another show in. I squeezed another comedy show in last week, so there's a lot of changes going on in my schedule. A lot of times things are changing. Holiday season hectic. Bookers are being very hectic right now. Who knows? I might squeeze another show in before the end of the year or another comedy show or whatever. But anyways, the best way that you can know about changes as far as my schedule, if you want to come out and see me do improv, if you want to see me do comedy, or if you want to become a sponsor of the podcast, you can just log on to social media and get in contact with me. And here's how you can get in contact with me and follow me on social media. You can follow me at ManScoutManning on Twitter and at ManScoutManning on Instagram. Or if you have a question about the podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. Anyways, let's jump into this wonderful podcast with Kristen and Dan of the Charlotte Curling Club here on Stranger in a Southern Land. There, folks, I'm sitting here with Kristen and Dan from the Charlotte Curling Club.
Charlotte Curling Association.
Association. Okay, I didn't know what.
We're for real.
We're for real. You're an association.
Yes.
Not incorporated,
Exactly,
but you're associated.
Yeah, we're actually a 501c3 non-profit organization.
Okay, you've impressed me already.
She does that.
You can drop the mic whenever. Just kidding. Maybe not that one. You can drop this one if you want. That one, maybe be a little careful with that one.
Fair enough.
But anyways, guys, curling, take me, for a long time I saw the word curling, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't know exactly what it was. I knew it was an Olympic sport, but I didn't know what it was. So for anybody that's been in that predicament of just I know curling's an Olympic event, what is it? Explain to me what curling is. Let's start there.
Okay, so curling is a wonderful ice sport. It's in the Winter Olympics, and the basics of it, a lot of people compare it to shuffleboard on ice. Okay. And so the premise is you throw these big stones, these big granite stones.
Which you can see in the video portion right here, which it is definitely a stone. Like, I was always wondering if they were plastic or whatever, but no, this is a stone.
No, it's about 42 to 44 pounds in that realm, and you slide them down the ice towards the house or the big bullseye. You might be able to see in the background here, and whoever you alternate, each player. There's 4 players per team. Throw a total of 16 stones, and at the end of it, it's whatever rock is closest to the center counts for a point or more, depending on how many are closest to the middle.
Okay. And now, from what I've seen of curling, you have the person that slides the rocks, and then you have these sweepers that go down. Like, where does that come from?
So the sweeping actually helps the rock go further and faster and straighter rather.
Okay.
So when they're sweeping the rock, what they're doing is they're wearing down this level of pebble.
Okay.
Which is just tiny water droplets on the ice.
Okay.
And that, it creates friction. It just lets that rock travel further. Because when the rock slows down, it curls in one direction or the other. And so that's where the name comes from.
Okay. Well, that explains it right
Curling.
there. But how long has curling been in existence?
I think since the 1500s or 1600s, something like that.
It is one of the oldest known sports on record, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's from Scotland, and so a bunch of crazy Scots got together on a frozen pond and took some rocks and just made the sport up, and so it's grown obviously since then, but yeah, it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah, and from what I know, it's very big in Canada.
Yes. Huge in Canada, definitely Scotland as well, and you'd be surprised. A lot of the Norwegian team is huge. Swedish team is huge. The Finnish team, China's got a team, Japan's got a team, so it's really worldwide now. But really big in Canada.
Yeah, because I always heard stories of Wayne Gretzky, like on his days off, he would find a place to watch the curling matches for Canada.
Every Canadian town has pretty much a small curling club in it, and so it's all over the place in Canada, very common.
Okay, well, we know what curling is, but how did it come into your life and your life as well, Dan?
Oh, wow. So we have somewhat similar stories, but from different places. So I started in Atlanta. I'm from Jersey originally, but I grew up in Atlanta, and I hadn't heard about it living in the Northeast. I heard about it just by watching the Winter Olympics. It was on at 2, 3 in the morning, and I was watching, staying up late, and I thought, this is fascinating. In a city like Atlanta, they've got to have this going on. And I looked, and they didn't. There was no club.
So was Atlanta where you got your interest, or you knew about it?
No, in Atlanta. Yeah, okay. I hadn't even heard about it until then.
But what made you think hey, it's got to be going on in Atlanta?
Well, Atlanta's a big city. You always hear Atlanta, the capital of this, the southern capital. It's the big southern city, and just about anything is there that you can find in almost any major city. So, I figured there's got to be something like this somewhere, and there was not. And so I sought out, in my searches through message boards online, I found a group of a couple people on Facebook looking to start a club in Atlanta.
Okay, what about year was this?
This was
2010.
2010.
Okay, 2010.
So it was right after that Winter Olympics, and what we did is we just got together, got a whole bunch of different interest on Facebook, and we actually had a public meeting, had a bunch of people come out just from a Facebook invite, and we knew we had something. We didn't have ice, we didn't have stones, we didn't have any equipment at all.
But you have people interested in curling.
We have people interested. And so we're the blind leading the blind. None of us have ever played. A lot of people hadn't even, just seen the thing on the Olympics, didn't really know what to do, how to get into it. We went to Tennessee where there was a club, the nearest club. They were having an event, and they were very gracious and actually taught us how to curl, the Knoxville Curling Club. And, after that, we brought it home after just learning, and we attempted to teach the masses. We got loaner stones sets, which are really expensive, actually.
Well, how expensive are they?
So one set of 16, you are looking at, for like an Olympic quality set, you're looking at about $10,000.
Okay, that's expensive.
Yes.
And the rock is very, very limited. It's not just any old rock. It's very specific granite. It comes from 1 of 2 places in the world. And the reason you can't use any type of granite is because it will absorb water. So this granite is special because the place it comes from, it is naturally hydrophobic or afraid of water. So it won't absorb water well.
Poor Rock. I'm sorry you're
Yeah,
afraid of water. I'm sorry.
So yeah, really hard to come by, and we did, and we kind of just went from there, growing our membership. There are now 2 clubs in Atlanta, and thriving. Maybe not quite as much as Charlotte, but Kristen has the kind of Charlotte side of the story.
Yeah,
Okay.
Charlotte is really similar in the way that we all really got started around the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, and in Charlotte there were a group of about 10 people or so who got involved, met at a bar, kind of talked about it. They had realized their interest from Facebook as well. And so that was a really big tool in starting up the Southern clubs. And then they started a Learn to Curl, which is the biggest way that you step into curling. And I actually came to the first Learn to Curl, and it was, there were about 20 people. We were playing on a sliver of ice in Pineville, and we
indoors or just like out?
Oh yeah, no. At the Pineville Ice House is where we started.
Okay.
And so they cordoned off about a quarter of the ice for us, and we had a few people who were from Canada or Wisconsin and had already known how to curl in the past. We had people from Raleigh who came to help us because they had actually had a club for several years. And we sort of gained momentum and really grew into what you see today. Okay. So about a year ago, we actually opened our own facility, which was huge for us.
Well, how did you become interested in it to be other than just watching the Olympics?
Really, it was definitely the Olympics and the Norwegian team curling pants.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, I was like, those guys look like they're having a lot of fun. Let's see what this is all about. And so a friend and I came to the Learn to Curl, and I'd found it online. There was a website and a Facebook site by the time I signed up, and so it was just kind of random interest, but it's one of those things that's so unique you just want to at least try it once. And I got hooked right away. I bought my shoes the next week. I was in.
Oh wow! Now Dan, when you were starting the Atlanta one very early, and you said that Knoxville had a club, if you were to guess, or if you even know specifically, how many clubs you think existed in this country at that time?
Ooh, at that time,
That's a good question.
Yeah, you might have a better estimate. I can tell you that there's even in the less populated states, there's probably at least one per state. I think the total, I heard a statistic, I think the total number of curlers in the country is somewhere in the 40,000 range.
I think they just hit 100,000.
Did they just hit 100,000?
I thought that was the
I think
stat,
at the time, but it was way less. After the Olympics, after it came into the Olympics, before we saw it, it was even a spectator sport at the Winter Olympics prior. So it's really exploded, certainly in this country. It's always been very popular in Canada and a couple others, but it really has exploded since this club started.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say, because I find it odd that Knoxville had a club, but Atlanta didn't. They had to learn from the Knoxville club first.
It would seem weird. It's really just where where real curlers ended up in their lives. We had no experienced people who had curled in Atlanta, so it was slow to start there. But in Knoxville, they have some seasoned veterans that have been curling in Canada and in the Northeast, so they're familiar with the sport. And they had officers in the regional association, the Grand National Curling Club. So they had some prior connections and people that knew what they were doing and had been in the sport a long time. So they had been able to form the club sooner than us.
Yeah.
So almost like kind of like a Cool Runnings instance. You had this guy who's a bobsledder, but he's happened to live in Jamaica, and like he knows what he's doing. Let's get him to teach us.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like that. There's little Disney stories happening across the country, but in curling.
Of
so
course.
so that's I guess that's a basic way to put it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like that.
But anyways, you talk about those early days of the Charlotte Club. Just a piece of ice in Pineville.
Yeah, just a sliver of ice in Pineville. And, we curled on hockey ice, which for curling is really tough because it's not level. We have to do a whole lot to it. We had to drag the stones out every time we wanted to play, and they're pretty heavy, as Dan mentioned, a little over 40 pounds. So, you drag
You got to get 16 of them.
for each set of teams that's playing. So every 8 people, you've got 16 stones. And so you take them all out, take them back when you're done.
I would love to see the vehicle that you have to bring to haul all of those stones.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
We started in the same way as Atlanta, really, where we had loaner stones. But now we've bought all of our stones at this point. So we have 4 full sets. And it's in the early days, it was very tedious to set it all up, and then you couldn't always guarantee the ice conditions were going to be great. I mean, if their humidity was up, it would be kind of a nightmare playing, and so we gradually moved from the Pineville Ice House to the Extreme Ice Center in Indian Trail.
I've been to that place.
It's really nice. They were
really
great
is.
to us for a very long time, and we were able to paint our circles on the ice for the first time. And
so your own little ice that was dedicated to you.
Yeah, it was also used for hockey and skating and things like that. But they did let us put in our circles, which was really important. That house target that you see is that's what it's all about, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're dragging nails or screws across, and then taking fat Sharpies, and drawing lines in it like that. It's you may
Doesn't
do with
sound
what
very
you have.
scientific.
No. Well, honestly, if you just put the string on it, though, you can get a perfect diameter circle. But you couldn't do it too much, or else the ice people wouldn't like you, wouldn't want you back. One Zamboni run can take it all away if as long as you're not too deep on the cuts. And but the stone just flies down there really easily. But in the old days, with the like she was saying, the ice wasn't very good condition. You had toe picks in it from figure skaters. It wasn't level. It was like a bowl. Otherwise it works a lot like air hockey. It just kind of glides across. But if there's any kind of slant or like bowing in the ice, any little misperfections, and it'll just change course on you.
Yeah, and you can't really learn from that, which was the ultimate problem. You can't, you get a shot that goes that way because the ice, you don't know how to correct it because you don't have consistent results. And so that's now.
So it wasn't like a situation like the situation was difficult and made you better. It was just hindering your learning.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay. So we're now in this fantastic facility here. How do we get from, the Pineville, then the Indian Trail facility to this facility that we see here today?
I think really we got really lucky in terms of the people that we have in the club. We have a lot of great people. It's a wonderful community, and people really wanted it. They wanted it, and they were willing to go after it, solicit donations, donate themselves, call in favors from people to donate furniture and a pool table, just sort of random things. Everything that you see here is really based on donation or we did get a loan from the World Curling Federation to help get us started, and as well as from some of our members too.
What do you mean the World Curling?
So they're the governing body of all the curling associations.
Okay.
So there's kind of a governing body, then you have the national body, and then you have usually regional in some countries, and we have a couple of regional associations. So that's who we're all official curlers are members of those governing bodies. In order to travel to different tournaments and things like that, you have to be a member.
But you said you got a loan. Did they have like some sort of like trust or something set up and like, hey, we want to start a curling club here?
Yeah, they grant loans. People approach them with the business plan and kind of have their stuff together and want to build a dedicated facility, and they'll consider you for a loan to get you started. Because it's costly. It's a 17,000 square foot facility. So we've got 5,000 here in our warm area, and then 12,000 of ice. And so it's not cheap to put all that in, to put all the insulation in, to run the building. And so it's it definitely requires a lot of capital to get you started.
And were you the one that put that business plan together, or?
I helped. I did.
Okay, you helped.
I'm the marketing end of things generally, but yeah, I spent a lot of time going through the business plan and helping tweak things, and it's pretty extensive work, but it was a great group effort. We had a lot of people who really put a ton of time, effort, money into it, and we opened much sooner than I think we expected to. And it's kind of unheard of for a club to go from inception to a dedicated facility within 5 years, but we were able to do it, and we were really, really proud of this place.
Well, obviously,
Absolutely.
that's a fast turnaround for
Definitely.
any type of business. But like, as far as like members, like you take the time from the time in Pineville to now, how many members have you collected in between that time?
I want to say at our height of arena curling, where we didn't have our own facility, we were about 80 members or so. And now, as of the end of last season, we're at 140. But then we grow every season. We get more and more and more as more people get exposed to the sport and come out and try it. And so, we got to a point when at the arena that you couldn't really grow beyond that because you have this amount of ice time and this amount of people can play, and that's it. And so now
you don't have a big window of time where people could come in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 2.5 hours once a week.
Yeah, where now you could have an entire Saturday, entire Sunday.
We have corporate events now. Yeah. We have ultimate time to do whatever we want.
Yeah, we were competing with figure skaters and open practice time and just their open skate as well as hockey team practices. So it wasn't really very easy to fit in enough time and space for everyone.
Yeah.
And then we talk about events. Like, what type of events do you hold here?
So, as I mentioned, we do corporate events here. We also have open houses, which are usually the first Saturday of the month, and that's a free event where the public can come out and try it out, just get on the ice and try some drills and just get a feel for it. We have Learn to Curl events, which is the gateway to really learning the sport, and those happen twice a week, usually Tuesdays and Saturdays. For people who are already established curlers, we have leagues. I want to say we have about 5 nights a week where we curl, and then we have a couple other nights open for Learn to Curl, some things like that. We have Bonspiels, which are our name for tournaments, and those bring people from all around the country and Canada and sometimes further beyond that. And those are usually weekend events. We have about 4 of those a year. So we always have something going on here.
Okay, and as far as those tournaments go, like you participate and they move on, is there like a big curling regional, divisional, that you're always building to?
There is, there's a national level of competition. We did have actually our group of senior men went to the senior men national championship and placed second altogether. So we're pretty proud of that. But yeah, for each event, there's a bracket within that tournament, and you play all weekend and you move up and you win or you don't win. But then there are official qualifying events as well that get you to that national level and beyond. So that kind of is the path to the Olympics.
But the community for the Bonspiels is really large. That's how I came to know the Charlotte Curling Club from Atlanta. We actually fielded a team to their first large-scale tournament called Grits and Granite. And that's actually how Kristen and I met.
Yep.
And we see the same folks coming from the different clubs, every year at the different Bonspiels, not just here, but also other places, Wilmington, North Carolina, our friends over at Triangle Curling Club in Raleigh, and in Atlanta we travel, really all around. And so we're all really good friends with everybody. We keep in touch pretty well, and it's really become a pretty close-knit family of curlers, of several hundred curlers in the Southeast, and we all see each other all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you just mentioned it here, and it brings up a good story. You two met
We did.
through this crazy sport of curling.
We did.
How did you crazy kids make that happen?
All right, I'll take that one. So
okay.
So I was the president of the Atlanta
Grand
Curling Club. They were having their big main tournament, their first one, at the Extreme Ice Center, and I fielded a team. We came down, and there was usually they have a little bit of practice time before the tournament actually starts, the day or night before. So we came in on a Thursday night. The thing runs the whole weekend, and so we're there and hanging out. There's a nice bar at the Extreme Ice Center, and we're up there, and there is a thing called a broom shooter. We have one over here. If you've ever heard of shot ski before,
it's like a group shot on an alpine ski.
And they mount the shot glasses so it's 3 or 4 people. So we have one of those over here, but with curling broom, right?
Okay.
And it was just made. Someone had just made it, and no one had used it yet. So myself and a couple of the Charlotte members, we were just talking, having a good time, fill up the shots, and we were short one person. And so the people I was taking the shot with convinced her to take the shot with us, and I didn't know who she was. And we take our shot together, and I can't take a drink with someone that I don't know their name anyway. So I introduced myself, and really took it from there. We met from our love of curling, Atlanta to Charlotte.
That's a good bond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like just having a drink with him, like
yeah, just having a drink right before we got out on the ice, and we just bonded over that, and we have talked every day since.
Yeah. And just 3 weeks ago, we recreated that original shot, and I proposed, and we are now engaged.
Oh, well, congratulations for you two.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful story.
It's different. You're not going to meet too many people in the South who met through curling, got engaged through curling. We'll have an after-wedding curling event. That's what we've got planned.
Oh, that makes sense. You have the space for
Of course.
We told you about our tournaments are called Bonspiels. This one's called the Nuptspiel.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's a good way to do it. That's great.
Right.
But was it an immediate attraction to him right away?
Yeah, most
Pretty
definitely.
much, yeah.
Yeah. So you met him like before a competition. Where was it like, oh, I like him, but if he sucks at curling, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this.
Actually, I don't think I was playing that time. I was
No,
not
she
playing.
was not.
I was like volunteering and doing a raffle and just kind of all over the place. So luckily there wasn't a conflict of interest.
That being said, I will admit she is a better curler than me.
Oh,
Whoa,
you said it on camera.
It's true.
Hey, listen, my girlfriend also was an independent wrestler, so there was a time there where we were like, oh, I don't know if she's better. Well, it not so much better that I know she's better than me. She had a better career than I did, but it's that sense of like, if he's bad, I don't know, like because we hadn't seen each other wrestle for a while, and then all of a sudden like. And then I saw her wrestle, and she's like, ugh, but like, I was nervous, but we were both fine. We got through it.
Good.
And that seems to be like when you meet somebody that has a common interest of you, like you don't want them to like suck at it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
you want to be on even playing ground.
Especially if you really
Yeah.
have a passion for it. Obviously, you have a passion in curling.
Definitely.
If like one of you was not good at it.
Right.
We're close enough.
Oh, yeah.
It's consistency.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm
That's all you
better
need.
than her. More often than she's more consistently better than me, I'd say. But that's okay because on a curling team there are 4 people, 4 positions. So not everyone can play the same position. So the skill level does matter to a certain extent in terms of in what order you throw the stones and are sweeping and everything else. So it works out. We can play together really well. More often than not, she's curling later in the team than I am because they're more strategic, accurate shots. But then sometimes I'll skip or captain, a team if we're going to Atlanta or some other place for a Bonspiel. So we just kind of switch as needed.
It's definitely nice to be able to play together, though.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you have personalities that are so competitive that if one person really flops, then there's some trouble at home. But luckily, we don't really have that.
Well, you talk about the positions and stuff like that. Like are you more of the sweeper, or are you more of the person that?
So everybody actually throws the stones and sweeps to some degree.
Okay.
You have your skip, who's, like you said, the captain of the team, who is the guy down at the end who's kind of directing the whole strategy.
He's the guy that's you always hear yelling.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's the yeller. And so he's the one who is figuring out what shot needs to happen next. And he doesn't do a whole lot of sweeping, but you have your lead, your first person who throws, your second, and your vice, who is the third person that throws. And I'm usually the vice, and I usually will go take the place of the skip when he goes to throw his stones. And so there's everybody gets to throw too. That's kind of the premise of it. I actually really enjoy the sweeping. It's a good workout. You burn.
Obviously, it seems like to be the most difficult
huge,
one.
yeah. You can burn like 400 calories an hour if you're really working at it. So it's actually a really athletic sport. I think more than it's given credit for. But yeah, I actually really like the sweeping. It keeps you warm on the ice. So.
Yeah, and that's important.
Yes.
It almost seems like the skipper is the guy. It's kind of like a guy who's backing up a trailer in a sense. Left, right, left.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that,
And
Absolutely.
then he's got 4 other trailers behind him, and he's trying to figure out where they're going to go.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
exactly.
It's a good analogy.
I'm good with analogies today, guys.
That works for me.
Doing
Cool
my
running.
best. Cool running. I'm working.
You're
all
on
in.
it.
I'm all in. What about yourself? What do you was your Dan?
More often than not, I'm playing lead or second. We do live a little ways away, so getting time. We come out here every week, at least once or twice a week. But still working on that. More often than not, these days I'm playing second.
Okay. Now, as far as finding like someone who's good at curling, what's like an attribute that a good curling player would have?
That's a great question. You have to be somewhere between the ages of, what we say,
8 and 80.
8 and 80.
Although we have a 5-year-old curler. So.
You may or may not be able to walk. You may or may not be able to see. It's really a pretty wide range. We actually have a blind curler, Cassidy, who comes out, and she's actually quite good for given what she's gone through and her disabilities. She's really pretty darn good. And we just had one of the only wheelchair events in the country just several weeks ago. We had wheelchair competitors from all across the country come out for that, Olympic coaches and you name it. So it's really pretty accessible. If you are not able to get down and crouch real low, that's okay, because they have delivery sticks that look a lot like the broom, but instead of the brush at the bottom, it has a little hook. It kind of hooks onto the handle, so you can push it that way.
It's more like the shuffleboard type poles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very accessible. And I mean, we have a wide range of curlers at the club, from we have youth curlers and people in their 20s, and we've got people in their 80s. We really do, and a very diverse crowd, and
definitely.
everyone can do it. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I always like to say anyone can learn how to curl. We have some way to get every single person who wants to try to curl out on the ice. It is hard to master. It's hard to get the finesse down, to get the rock exactly where you want it. But that's it's the fun part. If you if you have the competitive spirit and you really are looking to practice something and get better at it, and you've got the interest in it to start with, definitely people should come out and check it out. It's a lot of fun, and it's much quicker moving than it looks on TV, for sure. But yeah, anybody can curl, for sure.
Yeah, well, like, what would you say the one skill? Like you said, anybody can really do it, but what's probably the common skill that probably is it patience?
Perseverance.
Okay.
Yeah, perseverance, because you're going to have bad rocks. You might fall. Most people, thankfully, do not fall, so not to worry on that. But yeah, I mean, perseverance is really important, because if you throw a bad rock and you give up, it's sort of pointless to have tried to begin with.
The only other skill that I could say, attribute that you might want is helpful is balance and or consistency. Just like a golfer, there's a lot of golfers out there with really weird swings. Well, it works for them. But part of the reason it works for them is because it's the same every single time they swing. Same with curling. You can throw that stone any number of different ways, as long as you're doing it consistently, time after time. That's how you build the skill and get that finesse and are able to master that. Otherwise, I've tumbled over a little bit, but you're down low on the ice, and so it doesn't really hurt or anything. You just got to fall over. Whoops! Hope no one saw that.
Yeah. Maybe humility.
Humility.
You have to be like, if you fall, you can't be too worried about it.
Okay. How long has this facility been open?
We officially opened to the public in December 2014.
Okay, so it's you're coming up on a year now.
Yep.
What are some of the things you guys hope to do in the future? Expand upon for your club?
We definitely would love to build our youth and junior teams up. Right now, we probably have about 10 or so younger curlers. We'd really like to expand that and get some of the young people out and train them for the Olympics and have that be a more secure future for the club. To have a community that really wants to keep the club going. In addition, definitely wheelchair curling is a huge focus for us. There are so few sports that so many people with disabilities can take part in that we actually have a wheelchair member, and he's sort of helping pilot this movement. But it's really exciting when you get somebody who may have been athletic all their life, and now they're in a wheelchair, and they're kind of bummed that they're not able to play the sports that they were able to play before. But this is a sport, and it's kind of cool to see how excited they get when they're able to play. There's competition, there's good spirit about it, and so that's definitely, we really are working on wheelchair leagues as well, and getting a lot of people from the community involved in that.
As far as curling on the national scene and stuff like that, you guys ever thought of like, seminars and bringing like, I don't know who the rock stars are in curling.
We've had lots of rock stars.
Yeah, we have. They visited. They love the facility.
Yeah.
Yep. We had Jamie Korup, who is a gold medalist from Canada. He came down for an Olympic tour last year, and so we've had him here. We've had Debbie McCormick, who's been in the Olympics 4 times. She's kind of a friend of the club, and so she's visited. And we also have Jamie Sinclair, who is currently on the high performance program, which in the U.S. is sort of the highest level you can get before the Olympics. So she's currently she's a member of our club, and she is training right now in Minnesota, I believe. And she will likely be in the 2018 Pyongyang Olympics. So we're looking forward to that.
Wow. Awesome. As far as like you deal with a lot of the marketing, what are some of the goals for yourself as far as like trying to get people know about the club and get people out? Like what's your goal?
It's really, I think, trying to find the people that are a little bit more adventurous. Because if you go up to somebody on the street, not only in the South do you have to explain that there is curling in Charlotte, but you have to explain what curling is. So it's a little bit of a hump that a lot of northern clubs may not have, Midwestern clubs, et cetera. So it's really spreading awareness of the club. We're here, here's what we do, here's how much fun it is. It's a great community, and just really encouraging people to come out and just try it. I think you get people that say, oh, that's so cool, but then they never quite follow up with that. So it's almost the, getting to know about it and then getting them to act on that. Mm-hmm. That's the goal for us. And like I said, we're trying to build our youth groups as well, and try to get them out and have their parents come out too, because really it's a sport you can play together as a family. So it's there are a lot of angles that we're working to really spread awareness in our community.
Well, putting a bullseye in your building doesn't hurt.
We thought really that would work.
Yeah, like I expected a warehouse, to be really quite honest.
Fair enough.
Just a tin shed. So
okay,
it's not hard to find on Old Statesville Road.
Well, that's how we started. Then we filled it with a bunch of warm, cozy features.
Yeah.
And to add on to what Kristen was saying, how we're getting out there. I think it's important to talk about a little bit about the culture of the sport, how it's not just you come and then you play and then you go home. We're all very close friends here. There is a kind of a cultural phenomenon in curling called broom stacking. So in the old days, literally, you would, when you get done your game, you would stack your brooms, and then you go out and have a drink together. In a lot of ways, they're at the clubs now. We actually have a full function bars, members only. But when we complete actually competing, we come up here and we have a drink together, and it's considered polite and proper. Really, without it, I don't think curling would be nearly as big as it is. But it's actually a really big social aspect to it.
Yeah, we've got a really welcoming group of people too. So you mentioned we're all pretty close, but you come in the door and you're one of us. So
absolutely,
it's there's definitely that feeling about it, which is great.
Oh, awesome. Like, is there anything we've neglected to not talk about the club that you guys want to get out there before?
I will say that we have got an open house coming up, which is one of our free events open to the public. That is the first Saturday in November, which I believe is the 7th or so.
Yeah, the 6th or 7th.
Yeah. And so that's coming up. I believe it's about 2 p.m. that day, but we're at charlottecurling.com, so anyone interested can definitely check that out. We also have Learn to Curls all the time. And so those are all up on our website. We're on Facebook. We send out our announcements that way as well. And so there's always a way to connect with us. And if people are interested, they definitely are welcome to come out and try it. We will get them out on the ice, and I'm sure they'll love it. We don't really get many people who walk away and say like, oh, that was kind of lame. Like, people are usually really really happy that they came once they've tried it out.
Okay. Well, Kristen, Dan, I appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.
And talking about, I'm thoroughly intrigued, so I'm even more intrigued after talking to you guys.
Well, we'll get you out there.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure you will. All right. But anyways, thanks for sitting down and talking with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.